It's the Wolf Media Festival podcast. Today's guests. From the award-winning film, I Remember Everything. Co-directors Brandon LaSan and Benjamin Fargen. And now, here's your hosts, Richard Wilmore and Jacqueline Wolfhart.
Welcome back to the Wolf Media Festival podcast. Today we actually have two guests. Both were directors, award-winning directors of August's winning drama feature. We have Brandon LaSan and Benjamin Fargen, and I hope I didn't butcher that too much.
Nope,
but
that was it. Perfect.
That's awesome. So please welcome them. Hi guys, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Okay, so now I know Ben's in the hat.
Yeah, this is Ben.
Brandon is not.
I'm Brandon.
Okay, good, because I didn't even ask which one of you is who ahead of time. I didn't even ask that, but now I know. So you guys won feature-length film. You guys almost won in two categories. Our festival does it a little different where you don't submit to the category that you want to win in. We find it saves people money, that they don't have to enter in like 12 different categories if they think they could win, and you guys almost took home two separate categories completely. Dark comedy was the second one, and you just barely missed on that one.
Like it.
Yeah, so that was like very interesting because it was kind of an emotional film. It was about a kind of an emotional topic. Is that from either of your guys' life? Is this a true story or somebody you knew?
All
He's got to explain this.
No, but all resemblances to real events are coincidental. But yeah, we were definitely inspired by real life events and real people in our lives. Agreed.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
And I really appreciate that that you guys categorize it a little bit or notice, and just saying that it almost won for dark comedy. That's great because it's an absurd film, and we're always wondering who would like this, or what will people get from this. And to us, it is an absurd dark comedy a little bit amidst everything else. It's dramatic, and it's our intention to show some heartfelt life moments, but it's also kind of ridiculous. So
Right.
it's
Which
to me,
is
it's
life. Right?
Yeah, but then again, I mean, life is absurd in many ways. So a lot of it is like, life is art, art is life. There's a lot of moments where I think when we were filming it, I would think to myself, oh, this is crazy. But then I would think, well, maybe it's really not that crazy because this could happen. But absurd is absurd is a funny word because it almost could have like a negative connotation. I don't think he means it in that way. I think of it absurd as like more like just anything goes and you never know what's going to happen in life. But that's just kind of my take on it. He wrote the script, so
Okay.
he has more insight into maybe some of the deeper meanings. But I like absurd.
I think absurd's good. I think I'm the worst person to, when I see a dark comedy, I'm like, where's the comedy? Because that just seems like life to me. When I think of somebody talking about a comedy, I think of, like Jim Carrey or something, way over the top, diarrhea in your garbage can or a pie in the face, like over the top, what the heck, that's so funny kind of stuff. So when I see dark comedy, I'm always just like, isn't that just regular life? And so I kind of feel like what you were saying it is just imitating life. I kind of feel like there should be like a category that's called like, it's just life. Like this is the it's just life category.
Yeah, I mean, I also think of dark comedy as like uncomfortable realizations, uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable things in general. But that's usually powerful things when we're staring down the face of an uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable, person. You're trying to like kind of get away from him, and that kind of brings attention to it. And so I think there is those fun moments in it, or for some people, maybe it would be fun. That's kind of an interesting point. there's points in it I could see somebody getting the joke, and then some people being like, well, I don't like that because I remember I was in a situation like that and being uncomfortable. So
Yeah, and it's, it jumps back and forth between different tones. I mean, I think that, there's the first half of the movie is kind of straightforward, and but there's the banter between the sheriff's deputy and the social worker. They ride together as partners, and we're trying to really capture that oddity, or that kind of real life thing, which we have a friend who happens to have that kind of working as a social worker, riding with the sheriff's department in a small Northern California county. And, she always would talk about, like, well, we're in these really tense situations, but when we're not, we're goofing around, and we're like, having these experiences, and we're just sort of, life has a different feel between the tense moments and the crisis. It's a mobile crisis unit, but when it's not a mobile crisis, it's a lot of just goofing around.
And that's how you
their
survive,
banter.
though, too. When you work in those type of jobs where it's kind of a lot of trauma or a lot of negative, bad things happening, a lot of emotional moments, the only way you kind of get through the next one is because you had good moments between them. And so I kind of feel like you guys represented that all pretty well. The whole I'm so sick of saying this in my podcast, but in my regular life, I am a psychologist. I work hand in hand with
Okay.
social workers all the time. But anyway, so I kind of related a bit. I was not a judge. I was not a judge in this film, but I really kind of related to a lot of their banter, like more so in the beginning, like you were saying, of just this, like, this is life. This is just who we are, getting from one moment to the next. We're on our way to check out this particular situation, and we're gonna have wit between us, quick wit too, and then now we have to go be emotional or be hard or whatever we have to be in that moment, and you guys really represented that well, so good job on that also.
nice.
Well, thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I think we're, as first time feature filmmakers, there's a lot of, challenges to getting ramped up to figuring out, how do we do this? I mean, we're clearly not young people. And we're doing, we're connecting to make a film, and it's our first feature. Ben has a lot of experience in filmmaking. I have zero experience in filmmaking other than editing. So this is a really big challenge for us. And the fact that, I think, and I've seen this movie, of course, hundreds of times,
Yeah.
from the beginning, before, when we had really bad audio, to now when it's finally polished and finished. And, one thing, like, it was really a beautiful moment to realize, that even if it didn't, even if to the point where what you envision as, what your film is going to be, to the point what it actually becomes, I'm pretty proud of the fact that we were able to make, there were a lot of things, there's surprises, of course, on the way, but the things we were going for, we were able to capture, I feel like, here and there. It's like, it's a tough little road, a little needle to thread.
Yeah. I think also a testament to the casting. Philip and Sarah are the two main characters,
Mhm.
Jackson and Sammy. I mean, they kind of really captured the part fairly quickly. It was fun to see everybody really kind of lock in and just get, so much better as we got to the end. Like anything, starting off as rough, and then as they spent more time together and got more into the roles, that was really fun. But the comic relief between them worked really good. I mean, scenes to me like, where the dead body scene, won't give away too much, but where she flips him off when they're having the conversation. There's just these little, almost like brother sister moments. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're somebody that works close, and those kind of things. They have these sibling kind of comic relief moments. And I don't know if that's what you had intended in the script, but I saw these sibling moments of, like, I'm spending all of, day with this person, day in and day out. They're not romantically connected. So the
Right.
next thing is kind of that sibling connection.
Yeah. And the actual relationship is quite a bit like that between the, so also, I mean, if you imagine, and as you may know, I mean, it's just that tense, when you're in these tense situations and with somebody repeatedly, and then you find yourself, like, it's not so tense. There tends to be a lot of crassness and ridiculousness that comes out, or whatever. Even like basic moments become like kind of silly times. So that's kind of sort of the reason why that's ends up showing on the screen like that.
Yeah, no, I loved it. You wrote the characters very well. And this was just 100% your writing, or did you have anybody filtering in ideas, editing?
Well, I had some interviews, with a friend to try to get the ideas behind what I was going to write. I guess we should probably talk about why this came about, and the
Okay,
reason
yeah.
why it's focused on that person. We were hanging out with some friends. We were having we all went to school together from very early age. We're now in our 50s, and we were hanging out with a friend and with a group, and it was like we haven't seen each other in years, here and there. Like sometimes I'd see somebody here and there, and I was just coming off of quitting my job. I worked for Disney streaming, and I was had no idea what I was going to do. I presented my ideas to my daughter. She told me those are all terrible ideas. She used some pretty foul language and said, she's 22, she's a circus performer, and she's dedicated her life to art. And she was saying, I've dedicated my life to art, and you've been a proponent of that, and you've never really done anything. I would say that, that you haven't really taken that big jump. You haven't taken that big leap. And here you are, where you have a little bit of money you sold your house, you have no relationship, you're split up with mom, and you have this moment. You should just do this thing because you're going to regret it if you don't do it now. So at that moment, I was like, soon after that, I'm still kind of figuring out, am I really going to do this, what my kid suggested, should I go for this? And I kind of had an epiphany that I should. And right at that moment, Ben showed up at someone's house, and we spent an evening together. And I remembered that Ben had done some really great documentaries. And I asked him, I said something like, hey, you do some film stuff, don't you? And Ben said something like, that's all I do, Brandon. That's all I do. That's my job every day. I said, well, hey, would you ever want to make a feature film? And he said, yeah, I kind of been thinking about that recently. It's funny you should ask. So, there was some drinking that night, so I didn't know if he took me seriously, and I wasn't sure if he even remembered. But I called him up, soon after, and said, hey, I'm really serious about this. Are you serious? He said, I'm totally serious about this. I didn't think this was I really am serious. Are you? And I said, yeah. So we decided, we better start writing something.
Cool.
And at that same night, someone was late, and it was our friend Stacy. And she said, she told us why she was late. It was this, crisis situation. And it was really, a powerful story. And I just was thinking, like, she always has these crazy things going on. And so it was sort of the first thing I sort of gravitated to, because I wanted to get started right away. And, I've done writing, throughout my life. I've never really written a script. So that's where I gravitated towards. And I just sort of followed that path. And then next thing you know, I'm kind of going for it. And then, some other things came to mind about what it should be about. And the next thing you know, we have a script. And then, Ben helped me fix it up, and we were off and running.
Yeah. I mean, he had a solid handle on it from the start, because of course I was privy to it as it was being developed. And I was like, okay, this is intriguing. It's like, it's got all the elements here. And it was really cool as we got kind of toward the latter part of it being done. I just had kind of an epiphany about the arrangement of some big moments, and I'm not going to give away it because it's kind of some powerful moments in the film, about rearranging something from the end to the middle to kind of have that kind of hero's arc thing that we all kind of gravitated towards. And Brandon thought about it and was like, this is it, boom, and kind of like that. And that was another thing too. I mean, not to go off the script, but this wouldn't have gotten done with two people that were just kind of like crashing against each other the whole time. You really have to work with somebody whose strengths are your, strengths you don't have, and vice versa. And that really worked out well in this, because I really was not interested in like coming in and like disrupting the script and saying, should rewrite this, and like really being, manipulating that. I was kind of more excited about, here, let's take the big picture and maybe we can move it around, but as a script, I knew he had it covered. And then my job then after that was to like bring it to life visually, from a technical standpoint. And of course we both directed it, which was really great. Cause I mean, once again, I think there was just moments where, I was dealing with so many technical things. I'm like, DOP, I'm trying to assist somebody, a junior audio boom person that really didn't have a lot of experience. And so I was kind of having to manage that and make sure that, audio, as you know, is the most important thing even before video.
There's no crew, by the way. It's Ben and a boom guy. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it was two guys filming the whole
Wow.
thing.
You did everything, lighting, and then whoever was around, actors, friends who were there to help. That was our crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really have a crew at all.
Yeah.
If you look at the credits, it's like
it's almost embarrassing. Like it was like, man,
boom operator.
I mean, I'm proud. I'm incredibly proud, and it was a great opportunity to get to show off those skills. But on set, some of the moments that I just remember that hit me really hard in a great way at the end of the day was like there'd be moments where, I just didn't really know how to talk to somebody about the way that they were acting, and Brandon handled that. And then there was other times where I was there at a moment where I knew exactly what I wanted them to move or to do. And there was just never really a time where it felt like we were stepping on each other's toes, or like there was no awkward moments of like disagreement. It was just kind of like we were both in our zones and they would overlap occasionally, but it just kind of, it worked out really well. One thing I will say too, we were under the gun. We were overly ambitious on what we shot on the days that we did, because we had very little time and we had borrowed cars and borrowed, properties and all these things. So it was just like getting it done. So there really wasn't a lot of time to like, be pig-headed about a lot of things. It was kind of like, we just got to get this going.
It was always a little bit of a panic every shoot. Like, by the way, it was the most beautiful experience I've ever had. So if anyone out there wants to try it, you should just do it. It's very extremely challenging, but it's really the best. Like, and I'm really lucky that Ben and I really had good synchronicity, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. The greatest takeaway was like, no matter what, when we finished shooting, before the post process, I remember thinking like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, as far as like for creatively or taking on a project, work, anything that had to do with doing something. I just feel really lucky that Ben, we just kind of like had a good thing going, and we're excited to do something else. So we're definitely have a great language between each other, and Ben also, like, I remember one of these tough days, I was kind of like, I'm freaking out. Like I think we were pretty calm throughout the whole process, but there was one day where I was like, I'm losing my shit, I'm not sure. And Ben was like, Brandon, take a deep breath. And that was like the biggest I don't think we had any like times that we were like, hey, or arguing or like,
no,
it's pretty smooth. And I think I feel really lucky for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So from all that, I have like 12 questions going in all different directions. So first thing I want to say, though, you guys mentioned like only having no crew and it's just like audio this. And I just want to say to people who are thinking about it, Brandon mentioned like how much more important audio is than your visual. And I really want to reiterate that to anybody thinking about making videos and stuff. You can watch a really crappy video visually and your brain's okay with it as long as it sounds okay. But if it sounds terrible, it could be the most beautiful visual you've seen and you're going to be like, change the channel. Can I find a better version of it? So yeah, audio is
I didn't go to film school, but the number one thing I hear everybody say that they teach you is the number one rule of video is audio. Or the number one rule in filmmaking is not visual, it's audio. So
yeah.
And I think the bulk of all the work that was done in post and by Ben specifically, just to before, we're not even talking about editing, just getting the sound dialed in was kind of the huge undertaking.
It's a huge lift. And I mean, I have a massive background and experience in audio. So I was, I've been a musician since I was 12, did audio cue music, very, been around a studio my entire adult life. So I will say, if you are going to make a film, have a friend help you who knows audio, because that is super challenging. The tools that we have for audio are incredible, but they can be a little obtuse if you've never used them before. And just to get the sound that you want, like something semi-pro or pro, does definitely take more knowledge than stacking frames together, which most people can do with iMovie now and things like that, fairly well.
On your phone, you can do that. But audio, you got to watch 20 hours of YouTube tutorials to figure out how to do this one, 2-minute scene that you had to correct the audio. And then you're like, on to the next scene. How many more hours of tutorials am I going to watch for this one?
And also too, one thing, I'll put it out there for any first time filmmakers. I knew I was going to regret it after the fact, but we didn't do like a SMPTE sync or anything like that. And it added a lot of extra time. I also think too, when we were editing, we were kind of under the gun time wise that we could spend together. And so a lot of stuff I hadn't had the scratch track and then the main track even synced. I used Premiere to edit the whole thing, which is, fairly sophisticated in being able to line things up, assuming you have, a clap at the beginning and all that stuff. But take the extra time, spend the extra money, get it synced in advance, do time code if you can, instead of, buying that Reflex camera, buy the sync unit.
Yeah. One of the most frustrating things I personally find when I'm editing is if you have separate audio video and you have to try to match the mouths up to the millisecond of what's going on. You're always so thankful when they turn their head and you're like, thank God I don't have to try to match their mouth anymore. Or what, they go off camera and you're like, oh, this is going to be so easy all of a sudden. But 100%. So in your film though, or with this film, it's both of your first time feature film, right?
Correct.
But Ben, you've done lots of documentaries before, or you've done short?
I have. I actually have done 2 major documentary projects for UC Davis in the past. I also, my day job is, pro interviews with partners, mini documentaries on, product features, partners, fly dates where I just show up solo, interview somebody, capture all the B-roll, cut advertising things. So a lot of short form. Most of my day stuff is short form. And then from a longer, form has been documentary, but no narrative things, no features up until this point. But definitely from a technical standpoint, I felt blessed to be able to come in and be 95% confident that we could, capture everything the way it needed to be.
Bigger challenges, because in an interview, even if you're out on the street, you're here. In a scene, they might be walking from one room to a next room, and it's like you got to have all the right things for noise to bounce off of properly, all the right mic placements, and man, I can imagine it's still a lot of
it was a challenge. I think one really beneficial thing is that I have to do a lot of quick turn and think on my feet type of things, like come into an environment I've never seen before, make a determination on how the light falls, things that are wrong, and block it fairly quickly. So I think that really helped us get through scenes quicker. I think there were some of my favorite moments looking back now are just deciding to tell the actors to move in the way that they naturally would do it, and then just tracking them. We shot the whole thing with the shoulder rig because I really didn't have the luxury of bouncing back and forth between tripod. I wasn't going to use a gimbal or anything like that because we didn't really want it to be overly smooth.
We used both of those things here and there, but generally, it was a big hassle for him to switch out to these other pieces of gear.
Yeah.
So that would only be like, all right, we're going to do this one particular stylized thing. We need to do this, but
so literally, I had this shoulder rig on the whole time, and that just allowed me the luxury of just floating around. And even in, when you see car scene shot, I'm like literally like kind of crouched in there, and you've got that stability of the rig. So you're getting a little bit of that nice, motion or movement that people like in a movie without it being just like a big, bouncy disaster.
So do you guys remember when it kind of switched on TV? Like everything used to be so smooth, and then all of a sudden, I think it was like, it might have been Law and Order. I can't remember. It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember for me, I've noticed that with Friday Night Lights, I was like, whoa, they're like shaking it all over the place and zooming it, but I think
like how your head sees things.
Yeah. The Shield or something like that. I don't know.
Is that like late 90s, early 2000s?
They were just picking up like, like television kind of moved into that other era where it was picking up on film techniques instead of like just doing that
too. And also, if we really want to talk about it, it gets down to budget too. I mean, once again, you're having to put stuff on a tripod. In my mind, when a camera's on a tripod, framing it becomes like so much more time consuming because to move everything, it's you're moving brackets on and on. Whereas a shoulder rig or handheld, you're like, oh, I don't like the way this is framed. I'm going to just move my body and do it. So I think that was, I'm really happy we did that. I don't think we could have shot it as fast. And I kind of made that decision last minute. I was kind of like, when we were purchasing gear, and I just said, I think we should go shoulder rig and just go for it. And it worked out.
And every single shoot was like right to the last second. Like, I feel like we're just it's like barely getting, or someone had to go, or, there was always like this, oh man, we're right up against it. And some days more than others. But in general, like, I think one of our favorite scenes is, I don't know if you remember, but when they go down to the river and there's a train tracks and they're looking for something there. That was like our most relaxing day because we kind of had plenty of time. And I just remember that we were like, after that day was over, like, wow, that was really nice and relaxing. And the rest of them were always kind of like, freaking out and under the gun. But it's, that's still fun too. It's just, it is kind of nice when you don't have to struggle with, okay, now the sun's gone and now we have to fake this and, do all this other stuff. And
deadlines are great because it does force a outcome. But then there were days like that where it was nice to have a little bit more time.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, at least it's stressful, but it's kind of like a fun stress that you're, achieving something, getting to see all the thing you've worked on so hard, getting accomplished. But yeah, it's super stressful. And then for you, Brandon, this was your first film ever, your first script ever, or no?
Absolutely. I mean, I love movies. I mean, who wouldn't? I'm a little bit insane about it. My early work, I worked for a Blu-ray production company, authoring Blu-rays. And, for years I did a lot of editing for features and things like that that you see on Blu-rays. So I understand the language very well, but I've definitely never understood. I did have one experience when I was fresh out of high school as a production assistant, which was, crazy. It was a big shoot. But I was just totally flabbergasted by everything. But no, had no experience, other than some distant memories, and some post type work. So yeah, this was absolutely foreign to me.
What made you decide, like, I'm just going to go for a feature instead of like a short or a music video even, or,
yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I have the answer. I think it was because, I think you have to kind of blame my daughter on this because she was had a real go for it. Like, why don't you do this? And to me, like, I sort of felt like, no matter what's going to happen, I knew, having experience, like I never really, everything I've done, throughout, any kind of job I've ever had, I never really knew what I was doing anyway. So I figured coming into this, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I've got Ben here who has some expertise at least, so we'll figure some things out along the way. And definitely like the first few shoots were really, kind of challenging because we didn't, as far as like, not technically cool, we're all set, Ben's here, but the other piece,
Yeah.
it was like, it was really, we got better as we went along, both of us. But I think, I really struggled at first, like when you're trying to deal with a performance, I did not know what I'm supposed to do to get the right performance. And, that we kind of got the hang of that as time went on. But that's kind of what we were doing anyway. Like that was sort of the goal, was to like, just let's see what happens. And luckily some of those early scenes, we squeezed out the juice out of those stones. And I don't want to blame the performers. I didn't know what I was doing at all, and gradually got the hang of like, okay, and got the feeling of, okay, this is what we're doing here. And so I have no regrets about doing, maybe start with this short, I don't know, but there was a sort of this urgency, that
I mean,
I wanted to just give it a shot. So that's,
you
I
took
guess, why.
advice from a 22-year-old, and they tend to make more impulsive choices. And so it sounds like you were just like reliving your own 22-year-old dreams of like, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you could call it like, is this a midlife crisis, or is this how I've always been? I feel like, no, really, I've like always been this way. I've kind of been known for leaping. And so, but just that this time, instead of leaping, I was pushed off by my daughter.
Yeah. I'll go back. One thing that made the first few shoots really challenging is that for whatever reason, those scenes were the most complicated to organize, and they had the most individuals. So
we didn't mean to do that.
So, no. It just happened that way. And so the blocking and getting everybody organized for that, I think that was a real shocker. I was like, whoa, I'm used to managing 2-3 people most on a set, and I mean, geez, we had like 7-9 people, and it's really challenging when you don't have assistants and people like that. I mean, there was a couple times where we had to just be kind of like intense with everybody and say, guys, you need to get over here. This looks terrible. Move this way, blah, blah, just like kind of just forcefully kind of move everybody.
Sun's going down.
Just like, but it worked.
Yeah.
Worked. Which nobody hated us when we were all done. So
that's good. But I can imagine that when you're like such sort of fun guys to be around, sort of like more gentle, I don't mean that, I hope that didn't sound offensive, but more like gentle personalities, that all of a sudden you have to be the asshole on set probably doesn't feel good, even that you're like, oh man, is that going to mess up the scene? Or
yeah, you know what? It's funny. We were since everybody was, volunteering in a sense. I think we definitely were mindful of that. But I think it's funny. I think everybody thought we were like really lenient, almost like nobody ever was like, oh God, you guys are really. So I think that's kind of funny that like the times where I felt like I was intense was probably just like the standard way maybe a director is on a normal set.
Yeah, no, and it only happened out of necessity because, we are asking people who aren't professionals. There's nobody in this whole cast that, there's 2 people that had an acting experience, or 3. 3 had acting experience. Yeah. The rest are musicians, poets, teachers, a contractor, the guy who casts, bronze, and whatever. We had basically, and you're asking them to come from here and there, and give their time. So there's definitely, it wasn't professional. So we didn't feel like we had the right to be, but sometimes out of desperation, we definitely had to say, hey.
Let's buckle down.
Let's buckle down.
Yeah. I was going to ask about your actors, but you kind of just talked about that they weren't really actors ahead of time, but they did phenomenal. I think Sarah won an award, if I'm not mistaken. Was she an actor before, or is this her first time?
She trained when she was young, but she said, I don't really want to have anything to do with this. And she kind of abandoned that craft. But she's a super intelligent, super special person. And when I saw her in, coming up some stairs once, and she sort of reminded me of this, of the character. Like, I just felt like this is, and she's a little bit young for the part, but I just thought she's actually perfect. Like there's something happened, and I just asked her if she'd be interested, and she said sure. And then we went back and forth. And she also really loved the script, which was a plus because she's in every page except for one.
Yeah.
And she also was kind of she was working on a farm, and she's like, she's a poet. She's going back to grad school soon, but she's definitely a super intelligent, special person who has a lot of respect for the craft. She worked really hard to get that character nailed in, like probably, but she hadn't done it for probably 15 years. So we were super excited to have her on. And then once it started, it was definitely clear we made the right decision. She's
killed it.
amazing.
Yeah, I think she needs to revisit that decision because I think there's a lot there unexplored in her acting side. So hopefully maybe this will like reignite that passion.
She did have she wrote me a text when I sent her this, hey, you won an award for best actress in a feature, and she said, great, I can use this on my grad school application.
Bonus.
That's super cool. Yeah, no, she killed it. She was the perfect person for that role. I hope she does more stuff.
Me too.
Now, you two, in the very beginning, you kind of mentioned like how you started talking about this, but it seems like you guys aren't like best of friends ahead of time. You just knew each other barely?
Well, no, we grew up together. So we went to grade school and high school together and spent a lot of time. And then, once we became adults, of course, like everybody does, and Brandon moved down to the Bay Area and I stayed in the Sacramento area, and we would see each other, infrequently, the once a year at a friend's house party thing. So, I mean, we're always kind of in contact of either a once a year party or text threads or whatever. But when definitely this reconnected us in a daily, weekly, monthly scenario that we didn't really have previous to this. When also just regionally, he's back in this area now. So.
I've always loved and respected Ben. We've never been super close back when, even when we were young, but I've always just really enjoyed Ben's vibe, and you have a real, a calming presence. You always have, and always have had this sort of locked in and confident and positive, which really was the key to this whole thing. Like if everything seemed like impossible, Ben would always be like, no problem. I don't know if he really felt that, but he definitely made everyone else feel like that was true.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think just in my work world and my experience of just owning my own business or doing freelance stuff and all that, it's like, I just have that in my mind. Like, okay, if we just keep going and push through, perseverance, we'll get it. So I think that's my number one motto is like, when everybody else quits, if you continue to push through with perseverance, you'll eventually get somewhere. And so there you go.
Yeah.
That's we did. We got a movie done.
And when you get somewhere, though, a lot of times you can start pulling people up with you too. So that's kind of a nice.
Definitely. And one thing I'll say about this whole process, too, is that one of the things that made this work too is that Brandon watches and studies the craft of movies and filmmaking way more than I do, which is kind of funny in the sense of like, I have this technical knowledge and of course I watch a lot of things, but he has a much more deep, like encyclopedic knowledge of like movies. So I think that was big for me too, in terms of like, I knew that he had ideas going on that were tied into obscure films, not obscure films. So I think that maybe was like good in some ways that I am not always like honed in on. I was like more big picture type stuff, from a technical standpoint and making sure this, that. And then Brandon was a little bit more like focused in on like, the initial like theme or like the task at hand. I don't know. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, no, we definitely had a good synergy just because I definitely think I'm a little bit of a goofball. Ben's a little more focused. But we really combined well, and I think that, and we even the editing, I think that was another thing. Like I didn't know what it was gonna be like when we sit down to do this. We edited the whole thing together, and that it was really smooth because we agreed. You know what I mean? Like we lucked out. We lucked out on finding each other, and
if I had edited it my way, my, I don't know, style probably would have been a little too practical and a little bit too straight. And maybe if Brandon like had his way, maybe there'd be like some kookiness that maybe was just a little bit that the average. So I think that's the beauty. I think when we were all said and done, it was like, I don't really feel like this is anything else. I feel like it's practical enough to where a majority of film crowds could understand and appreciate it, but then the special people that like Lynch and some of the things that we both love will appreciate these little moments that we left that are a little bit more quirky, or these long scenes that are maybe slightly uncomfortable that somebody who doesn't know filmmaking might go, why did they let that go so long? Those things were intentional. We're like, we want that weird uncomfortable tension in a certain spot that's like going on just a little bit longer than you.
It's real. It's very real.
Edited out at first, then went back. Put
that guy's weird face a face that we just laughed at, like just cracked us up. And some of these cuts, which this too from editing and making films, were like moments where we had just fired up the camera and we hadn't even begun like with the dialogue, and somebody just had a look on their face or something. We're like, that's it. We have to put that there. So there's little magic synergistic moments that's the whole fun of it. Those little moments that you just walk away and go, how did we get that capture or that face or whatever? So fun.
I love it though. It's very real. So with this film, what is your guys' goal now? You're putting it into film festivals currently.
We were just talking about that today.
We'll tell you later. We don't know.
Okay.
No, we're really, we submitted it to festivals, and lots of people want to see it. There's some challenges to that, for screening, for even cast and crew. There's some festivals have limits on where you can show it, and there's some areas that we're submitting to that we're waiting to find out if they say no, then we can show it publicly. We're doing some sneak screenings or something, maybe. I don't know. We're trying to figure out how to do this. But yeah, right now, as far as like what we're doing, we don't, I don't know.
I mean, getting in, what did you say? There's 30 submissions total?
Yeah, but I think so far, but I think that you got, as you go through the year, you can kind of pick up some more here and there. But we have another project we'd like to get started on that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a feature, but we're looking forward to maybe getting into that. It's a great idea we're both excited about. So, but it's, I don't know, I guess that would be, if the answer to the question is that we're kind of looking into starting another project together, because we definitely enjoyed the experience.
Yeah. I mean, in long term, my hope is that this would show that we could, with a very, very small amount of crew and a limited budget. It was a good budget for considering the first film, but limited budget to be able to get the confidence of somebody else to fund, a second feature based upon the fact that we, without any guidance and without anybody really like setting deadlines, we were able in one fairly short year to film, edit, and release something completely independent. I mean, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry, I had to mute my mic because there's a train going by.
Oh, no worries.
Perfect timing. So I'm going to close this up now. Where can people find more information about the film or more information about you guys, or just even check out, like, if you have social media or anything?
Well, I don't think we really have any way that anyone could do that.
I mean, can people just random people can't go to Film Freeway, right?
No, they can't. No. So we're working on this. This is a we just finished. So we're still trying to figure out how that goes. But thank you for giving us a promotional opportunity, but we don't really have any way for anyone to see this yet.
But maybe at some point we can backfill like the links or whatever on the notes section.
Yeah, definitely. I do that stuff all the time, so no big deal. But yeah, if anybody wants to find them, you can't. So talk to me, I guess.
Yeah.
back to me.
You can't
and
watch
I'll
the
give
movie
you
we just
a-
talked about for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But we'll try to, hopefully someday, very, not too long from now, it'll be available for folks to watch. You just can't do it yet.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with in the future. I'm so excited that I got to see what you already made. It was very wonderful. And just really thank you so much for sharing it with me. Well, with us, actually.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really fun to have someone that we did that out of, in some you're all the way over in Melbourne, Florida, right?
Yep. Other side
Watching
of the
our
country.
movie. That to me is really thrilling. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And it's really fun that you appreciated it. Thank you very much, Jacqueline.
Yeah, you're welcome. See you guys later.
Wolf Media Festival Podcast with Richard Wilmore and Jacqueline Wolfhart. Produced and edited by me. I'm Jacqueline Wolfhart. Don't forget to check out the links in the description to find ways you can connect with our guests. Thanks for checking us out today and tuning in every week wherever you get your podcasts.